action.
On Purim and on Chanukah, we say Ala Nisim. Very interesting. The Ala Nisim that we do on Purim is extremely short. The Ala Nisim we do on Chanukah is a ganze Megillah. Very, very interesting. Very much at length, the whole story. The one on Purim is simple. Haman wanted to kill us. Hashem helped us. We were able to overcome his plans. We hanged him up. And that's the end. On Chanukah, we have a whole discussion of what they wanted to do and how they wanted to destroy us and what they tried to do. And then after they finished and they went and they were mitayar the Mesa Mikdash and they lit candles and a whole story, a whole discussion. Why is it that difference? This is the question that is asked by the Bnei Yissaschar. My Rosh Hashiva, Zecher Tzaddik Livracha, Reb Rudin, had a sicha that was printed up in the sefer of the sichot that the Mussar Shmuzan used to give after the Mashgiach, Zecher Tzaddik Livracha, Reb David Krongas was nifter. So the Rosh Hashiva used to give Mussar Shmuzan as well. And in one of his sichos about Chanukah, he said, we know that there are two miracles of Chanukah. One miracle is the war. So few people were able to go ahead and defeat this major army of the Greeks. The second miracle is the oil that burned for 8 days instead of 1 day. And the truth is that we find this divided in different sources talking about Chanukah. The Ala Nisim only talks about the war. Doesn't talk about the miracle of the menorahs at all. The Gemara, when it brings up my Chanukah, quoting the Megillas Tainis, which is the source of the information of the halacha about Chanukah, only talks about the miracle of the menorah. So it seems to be divided within the literature of what ness is there. There's no question that both were there. The Maral says that there's no question the Iker Ness was the Milchama, but the Ness of the menorah was to show that this is all through God, because that's the Ness of the Milchama, the victory over the Greeks, could lead people to say, oh, Chanukah is all about we're mighty, which unfortunately there's some segments of society even today who think that's what Chanukah is, and that's not the case, right? The case is that if that segments of society would be living in the times of the Chashmonaim, they would have been the enemy. Right? So it's a very mistaken approach, and therefore, the Maral says you needed both. But so we have two separate lines of thought. So Rosh Hashiva Zecher Tzaddik Livracha explained. He said that the question is, obviously both are through HaKadosh Baruch Hu, through the Yad Hashem. But which one do I look at as the main miracle? And we can divide it in lines of physical and spiritual. The ness of the victory was a physical ness. The ness of the Pach HaShemen, of the oil that burned for 8 days, was a spiritual ness. Which one do I concentrate on? Which one do I put my main concentration onto? Says Rosh Hashiva Zecher Tzaddik Livracha, says that that's a machlokas Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai says that the first day you could light 8 candles, and it is pochet v'olech, gets less. So you start off with 8, second day 7, third day 6. Beis Hillel says, Malin, you go more. Marbe. Says Rosh Hashiva. Beis Shammai looked at the physical miracle. The physical miracle lasted for 200 years. Because after 200 years, it was destroyed. So we had sovereignty for 200 years, maybe more than 200 years, as the Rambam says. But Sof Kosov, at the end, we were vanquished. So therefore, Beis Shammai says, Poches v'holech. Beis Hillel says, no, we're not looking at the physical. Beis Hillel always has this deeper perspective. We're looking at the spiritual. And the victory of the Spirit continues. It continues on. Becomes even stronger. And therefore, they say, Malin B'Kodesh. They keep going higher. The Meis Issachar says that that's the difference between Purim and Chanukah. He says Purim was a purely physical miracle. We had somebody making a gazera to destroy us, and Hashem helped that we were able to vanquish him. That's a purely physical miracle. Therefore, there's not that much to talk about. He plotted, he tried, Hashem helped us overcome his plot, we killed him, Shalom Yisrael, finished. Purim on Chanukah is a spiritual miracle. And that spiritual victory goes on. Because if the spiritual victory does not continue, then ultimately the Yevanim won. It might have taken them 100, 200, 500 years, maybe 1,000 years, but if ultimately that miracle, that spiritual victory, that is inspiration that comes from the Spirit doesn't continue, then they won. Therefore, he says that's why our Nisim here has to finish with the ideas of a continuation of something that goes on. And I would like to add even to say that Be'emet, the Alanisim says explicitly. It says in the Alanisim, Vasi Salanu Teshua Gedola Ki Hayom Hazeh. We don't say that in Purim. It continues to this day. Because the pshat is that if the victory over the Yevanim does not continue today, then today they won. What makes it that they didn't win, that makes it that we were victorious, is that even to the present day, we have that spiritual victory, that elevation of spirit, which is the victory of the Chashmonaim over the Yevanim. And if that's the case, that gives us the direction of what Chanukah is supposed to be. Chanukah is the time that we have to work on recognizing and feeling that spiritual victory, so that even today it continues, because what we do today gives the victory to the Chashmonaim of Europe.